Hello everybody, I'm going to and welcome to tonight's webinar. Before we start, I just wanted to introduce myself and the other members of the Chelmsford Diocese communications team. I'm Sarah Newman and I work part-time alongside Tom Geldard, who is Director of Comms and Media. One of our priorities as a comms team is to support our parishes with digital communications. Tom can't join us tonight, but like anyone who's unable to join us live, he can watch this again once this recording is uploaded to our website. But today I'm here with James Cottis, who's helping us behind the scenes, driving Zoom. James runs his own company, Digital Spirit, and works closely with us, supporting us with our website and other digital comms. Through his company, he also supports many of our parish churches with their websites too. I'm also here with Reverend Alan Moss. Alan is a pioneer minister in Walthamstow, and he works with us one day a week and helps us develop our online church resources, including helping us put together this new series of webinars. So thank you, Alan. Some of you might know that we ran some webinars last year and earlier this year to help our parishes adapt to doing church online. This new series of webinars is designed to help our parishes think about how to continue to use digital going forward, especially as we return to worship in our church buildings. These webinars are very much a place where you can come and join discussion, share your experiences, we can learn from each other and share best practice. But they're also a place where you can raise your concerns about online church and also have an opportunity to ask lots of questions. We have future webinars planned, and details of these will be added to our online church pages to our website in the coming weeks. Also alongside these webinars, we have our online resources church hub, where you can find all sorts of information about digital comms and online church there. And also we've created a new community with the Chelmsford Diocese Online Church Facebook group. But I don't know if many of you know, but Facebook is down currently, but we will share the link with that. And this is also a place where you can kind of come together, join in discussions, and just ask questions and learn from each other about anything digital. As I said, I'll put the links to these in the chat. But I hope you enjoy tonight's webinar, and I'm going to hand over to Alan, who's going to tell you a bit more about it and how things are going to run.
Hey, good evening, everybody. As Sarah said, my name is, I've got little pop-ups there. My name's Reverend Alan Moss, and I don't know if the title really makes sense, but I'm a pioneer leader in Walthamstow, which essentially means that I work on estates, working in the local area of Walthamstow, which essentially means I get to go all the good bits of vicariing without having to worry about a parish, if that's what you were thinking. So tonight we've got Pete Phillips with us. Now we've done a few of these now as Chelmsford Diocese as a sort of a team, and we've had some really good conversations and two ways, but Pete by far was one of our favourite speakers before, because he's I'm just laying on the pressure for this, building up the session. No, but Pete's great, and he's been thinking about the nature of hybrid church, about how we balance this new online world that we live in alongside the the ancient theology that we've been traveling with for centuries. And so Pete's going to unpack that a little bit for us tonight, and just thinking about as we emerge from the pandemic, which I believe we are doing. I know there's always ups and downs, peaks and troughs, but as we emerge more and more, we've learnt so much. We've learnt so much over the last sort of 18 months, and we, not just as a diocese, but we as God's church, want to be able to continue to do that, to continue moving forward, and not just do it for a season when we needed to and now suddenly rush back to where we were. So I'm really passionate about this. I hope you can tell that. And so we're trying to gather as many of the sort of leading thinkers on this, people who have been thinking about this long before the pandemic hit, and to try and inspire us on what comes next. And that's what we've entitled today, I guess, What Next? As hybrid churches, we emerge from the pandemic. So I think in terms of housekeeping, it's please do keep yourselves muted as we go through, as Pete sort of leads us and sort of brings us some information. But we're going to give plenty of time at the end. We're going to go into some breakout rooms, and we're going to give time for questions. And in all honesty, that's going to be one of the most important parts of the evening, because a lot of this is done in conversation. And that's how we're going to emerge from all this, and that's how we're going to move forward. And so what I'd encourage you to do is, as Pete's speaking, keep yourself muted, and then at the end, when we go into breakout rooms, be jotting down some questions, and also throughout the talk, be putting questions in the chat box, and James is going to be keeping an eye on that as well. And there's some links going in there from Sarah as well. So yeah, so just be thinking about some questions, because we really want this to be in dialogue. This is not a bunch of experts or so-called experts laying out a load of information. We want to be able to do this in dialogue with one another. So do jot down those questions, write them in the comments. They said, Alan, do some housekeeping. I guess if there's a fire, your nearest fire exit is your front door or your side window. You will know your layout better than I do. Other than that, yeah, I'll hand over to Pete to lead us through.
Hey, thank you very much. Thank you so much for that introduction, Alan. I have unmuted myself, I think. Nice to see you all. Thank you very much for the invitation to come and speak. I'm going to share a screen and then just go for it. I was sharing with Alan earlier. I've just been doing a talk to some army chaplains over in Swindon. I'm just driven back home, and yeah, so interesting to have the kind of conversations over there with them. Hybrid, as you kind of see in this diagram, kind of ends up at the end of the diagram, or kind of the far right hand. But hybrid church kind of emerges out of quite a difficult period of time for the church. And I would say emerges what is still a very difficult time for the church. So Stephen Garner did an initial form of this diagram, and I've kind of amended it and everything, and he knows I use it, and he keeps pestering me to get my own diagram one day. But this one's really good because it kind of models the church going into lockdown and the masks that we put on and so on. But then the whole kind of burst of creativity out of the pragmatism that the church had. And the kind of rhythms of life that we developed that we felt were really important. So we all kind of went online, or lots of people went online, and began to do digital things in a new way, digital things which were exciting and life-giving. But those very kind of shift onto online, as well as kind of trying to live in a pandemic as well, meant that in the end we began to get feeling a bit kind of traumatized by the whole thing and clearly exhausted by it. There was still tons and tons of creativity, this pencil at the bottom, all kind of shiny stars kind of thing. I remember in particular one of Alan's great times, and he got very excited and dressed in purple for us as he advertised our Missio Dei book in the middle of lockdown. Pleased to see Alan still kept that energy. Whereas the rest of us are perhaps like that. This poor bloke in the next picture is kind of bowed over and bowed down with the weight of what was going on. And then we had the end of lockdown, and kind of the church began to return to its buildings, but we still kept on going with the online church as well. And then we ended up with this kind of idea: is it time for us to have a hybrid church, a church which was both at the same time online and offline? You know, just to kind of make people work twice as hard, really, wasn't it? So that we kind of make them work on site, but also make them work online. So hybrid church is a kind of fresh expression for digital culture. Okay, that's how I like to kind of think of a pioneering type of church for digital culture. This is Adam Sandler's kind of model for the digital church spectrum, which he brought out towards the beginning of the church, of the lockdown period. And you'll notice here on the right, you've got kind of church with no online, sorry, on the left, church with no online presence. This kind of, you know, completely on-site church, which has no idea that the digital world even exists. Sadly, often your average parish church. But then you kind of shift over to a kind of slightly church online church, where there's a website and an active Facebook group, Or in even more kind of digitally engaged, church where worship services are streamed live on a regular basis, or down at the bottom there, church with a clearly defined outreach online, Zoom groups, live streaming, and so on. So we're beginning to become more and more digitally sophisticated. And then there's the kind of one at the top, church where online and offline participants can all become members and fully participate. So this is a kind of merger, the mix, the hybrid church. Harvey Barber said that hybridity was where the newness comes, where the Holy Spirit blows into the online-offline experience, online on-site experience. And then he had churches where you can go even further on the digital spectrum, church where almost all content and participation opportunities are online, but most is delivered by a local church, church where all content and participation are delivered by a team mixed of local and online, and then this final thing, a completely online or digital church. Hybrid is focused in the middle here and is trying to say we want the best of both worlds. We want the best of both of online world and also the best of on-site world. One of the big questions, though, of course, is how we do that. How do we get people to participate fully in both of those kind of realms, as it were, in both those areas? One of the key learning points that we came out of lockdown then saying that we want to feed into this hybrid church. First of all, we have to focus on church as community. One of the biggest issues for me as we go through from lockdown into post-lockdown church is the re-emergence of temple theology for the church, almost as though the physical site, the on-site, is seen as a temple where we hold God and we broker God, as it were. Only people who come into the temple are going to experience him, and we, the priests, are going to almost kind of broker his presence. We're going to let people see him or not. That doesn't really work with an online expression of church, because God's missio Dei, the fact that God is out there on mission, means that he is actually engaged already in connecting with people online. And so any attempt by us to say, no, let's hold back, let's wait till we get to church and then connect with God. I'm not sure God plays game with that. He's not going to play ball with that. He's going to want to kind of actually connect with people regardless of what we're up to. Yes, he loves using the church, Christ's bride and everything. But we just need to be careful we're not too kind of picky about brokering God in that kind of way. But we do need to focus upon the tech which promotes community. Often people have seen that as Zoom rather than live streaming. One of the problems with live streaming is that it plays into the ongoing entertainment bias of tech reception. So live streaming feels like watching a video on Netflix or watching a video on YouTube. It feels like entertainment. And in the university sector, we've been warned by Microsoft and other people to be very, very careful that we don't make education into something which is all the time looking like a film, because people just switch off their brain cells, really. They just sit back and enjoy it rather than it being something that they can engage with in a different way. We need to, I'll talk about digital divide in a minute, but we need to include lots of faces to show off our community, not just the vicar always in show, but actually showing off the diversity within our community, bringing leaders forward, bringing readers forward, bringing people who can be engaged in the worship through prayers and so on. We need to, as well, be very, very careful about this digital divide, digital poverty thing, because remember, though we might have digital riches, we may have a connection, we may be able to work off a local internet provider or something like that. Many people don't have that access, don't have the devices that we might have. In Africa, of course, they don't have the data that we have because data is very, very expensive. For us, it's quite cheap. But do remember there may be people in your congregation who can't connect digitally. And so they may be kind of even left out of this. Hence the on-site and online, to say that we want to do the best of both of these worlds. We found out as well that discipleship leads to attendance. We found out very, very much that one of the big things about online is, though many people took their services online, the people who saw the biggest growth were those who also took discipleship online. Alpha, prayer meetings, daily prayer, and so on. I remember somebody saying to me that, I said to him, you know, how many people attended morning prayer with you when you were in church before the pandemic? Oh, perhaps one, he said. Oh, how many now? Oh, over 40 every single day. The kind of change over of digital engagement and inclusion there. Justice issues are also a crucial part of mission. To include those: act justly, love mercy, walk humbly with God. How are you engaging with your digital, with mission and justice? And always giving people an opportunity to connect back to you, putting your website details, your email details and so on, so that people can kind of see what you're about and what you're doing, what are the opportunities for them to connect with you. Let people know that you're praying for them and that you care. One church in Gateshead began to do this across the village, telling people that they were praying for them, and it led to huge growth in what they were trying to do. So discipleship is really important, community is really important. The idea that we're not just stuck behind the walls of our church, that we're willing to shift out beyond the church walls into the very communities in which we live. Absolutely crucial. But being online and on site also raises its problems, because both online and on-site issues need to have the playing field leveled, as it were, with different audience needing different kinds of participation. So the reason I talked about it, actually I might go there now. So let me go here a minute. We recently did this online synod down in the Southeast District of the Methodist Church. And the actual meeting was held in Worthing. But there were about 70 people who were online in a Zoom meeting. Now that was really interesting, and it worked quite well. People who voted online, people voted on site. People had communion online and we had communion on site, and things worked well. People spoke online and people spoke on site. We had breakout groups on site and we had breakout groups online, and that each of the breakout groups had 2 or 3 minutes to kind of feedback, and we did a mixture of those online and those on site doing all of that. But there are other elements that didn't work really, really well. For example, you know, I saw a friend of mine from years ago in this synod. It's the first time I've been there, and I was able to run across the church because I was there and say hello and meet them and hug and whatever. Well, no, we didn't hug, just kind of elbowed, you know, because of COVID restrictions. But we had a great time connecting and everything. But I also saw a friend of mine from ages ago who was up on the Zoom meeting, and I couldn't engage with them. So how do we get that connectivity, reciprocal connectivity between people who are on Zoom and people who are in the room? Yep, between on-site and online. How did, moreover, the people on Zoom didn't have chat enabled. So they couldn't even talk to one another. They couldn't even kind of chat because they wanted to leave chat nice and clean for emergency issues with the tech. But that silences kind of cross-party chats on Zoom. It silences you being able to kind of do the politics of a synod or a bigger meeting, that you can't really confer properly with one another because you're locked into your little room. Now, somebody could come and get, well, if Facebook was working, they could take out their phones and tap a message on iMessenger and get contact with everybody, or use Twitter or something like that, or they could phone the person. But we need to make sure that there are ample ways in which each of the groups can talk to one another and feel equally represented on both sides of the on-site and online. So again, I'll come back to that one in a minute, but just let me go back to this. So you've got kind of, how do you maximize the experience for both online or on-site? How do you maximize the community feeling for those online or on-site? It's easy when you're in the room because we're really used to that. But even though we've been on site online for so much, we're not used to that yet. We've had millennia working out how to have a meeting with one another or in person. Yep, on site as it were. But we've only had a few months or a year or two to work out the ways in which we can maximize our engagement online. So we need to do more of that and get more practice. but also how do we maximize the spiritual engagement for online or on-site participants? For example, sharing communion is really, really important way to do this, but the Church of England won't allow us to do that at the moment if you're in the Church of England. So you kind of they say, the people on Zoom need to watch as I eat bread and drink wine, and you can have what we call spiritual communion, an old Catholic tradition dating from the medieval period. And it's possible for you to watch me break bread and drink wine, or drink my coffee, as it were. Hello, everybody. But you don't get the same kind of experience. And is that fair to make it, well done, Mark, to make you online feel that you're kind of somehow deprived from the same experiences of those of us on site? How do we level the playing field? Do we light candles, and do we ask you to light candles at the same time? Do we use incense and incense at both sides? Do you know, whatever we do, how do we do that to maximize hybridity and spiritual engagement on both sides of the screen, as it were? Live streaming does offer increased potential for new visitors. We've seen that throughout the lockdown. And so we need to kind of ask about them, about how we engage those new visitors and how we disciple them into something new. Mixed mode, hybrid or hybrid church, as I call it, also stretches the team and the participants. As I said before, we're not really used to this concept of seeing everybody else's faces. I mean, after all, you know, I'm just trying to see more people's faces. And I mean, lots of people are not using their video tonight, which is really interesting. Presumably they're going to watch it later or something. But we're not used to seeing one another's faces. I mean, look at Alan's face, you know, that huge, great big beard and everything like that. Yeah, oh, and Don, you've got a beard as well. That's really interesting. Marika, you don't have a beard, of course. Carolyn's got blue hair in the picture. And sometimes I know that Carolyn's hair is green. You know, can kind of go around and say, I can see you. Oh, hello, David. David's just kind of come on. Nice to see you. Oh, Carolyn's on. She's got orange hair. Amazing, you see. Now, we're looking at one another, and this is a really strange thing to do in church, isn't it? Hi, Tim. Because normally what we do is we look at the back of other people's heads. You can see my bold pate, as it were, because you're behind me. Hi, Simon. Simon Brave is on. Brave as in your surname there, turning on. But we normally look at the back of other people's heads. We look at the person up front rather than actually being able to turn around and see one another and our faces. And, you know, some people have said, this is actually really hard for us because we begin to kind of flick across everybody's faces and wonder what different people are saying and try and read too many faces all at once. Liz Stocko from Loughborough University said, actually, it's really, really good because the first time we get social engagement with a church community, and it's a really good way to connect with people. So the way that we engage, the way that we use Zoom or the way that we do live streaming says different things about how we want people to engage with what we're doing. Live stream tends to reflect doing things for entertainment. You know, you might watch a YouTube video or Netflix or something like that. And that's what we see, kind of film version. And a number of researchers have now come back and said, actually, that's what's happening with education as well. That if you put a live stream video on, then it actually, people's minds are turning off. They don't see it as education anymore because they can't see the lecturer, they can't see them, they don't think that they're talking to them anymore, and their mind just kind of gradually goes more and more quiet. Always have that problem with student, no. So lots of different issues here about using the affordances of technology properly for online and offline church. There are, of course, issues of funding for new ways of doing church behind the walls, because often we feel that we only can fund what's happening in the building rather than what's happening beyond the building. How do we do our mission work? How do we engage with people? How do we put the money into that? Another thing here about hybridity is also what Richard Hardy here says, said in a premiere video that we did, that it's important to do different things in a specific way. So, for example, on-site, shared, or online. What do we best do for an on-site engagement? What do we do to enhance the physical meeting or the event? What do we do for kind of encounter service? We allow people to connect with one another. I'll come back in a minute to where I want to call on site the potential for a dating God church. In the shared space, we can do lots more, a lot of kind of discipleship and digital engagement, prayer, Bible study courses, church meetings, business meetings, community projects, prayer chains, and all that lot. But also do something special for the online group, a short 30-minute service perhaps to stop the kind of, Zoom fatigue and so on, or do small group, breakout groups within your worship and so on. Again, devising the right thing for the right technology all the time. Done that one already. I've talked about Zoom affordances a little bit, YouTube and entertainment, whereas Zoom is kind of talking to a community of people, lots of different faces there. Facebook with a mix of text messaging and some video, perhaps a good model to use, especially Facebook Messenger, using that for pastoral group meetings and so on. But also WhatsApp, Signal and Telegram in our research groups at Spurgeon's and everything. We tend to use those kind of models for group chat because they're more private than some. They don't get ads and so on, so it's a lot better. But perhaps Zoom is better than physical church for seeing faces, I've said, but perhaps Zoom also is too visual for us, and hence we can enter into this Zoom fatigue as you try and view everybody's faces all at once, and perhaps you need to turn the self-view off. Let's go back into some research a minute. This is some research from Pew in 2017, which questioned why people came to religious services. Notice this, 6 in 10 attenders go to religious services primarily to get closer to God. For those of you preachers, that may be disappointing, that they haven't put, first of all, to hear the preacher's great homily that they've spent hours writing. In fact, the sermons are valuable. There it is, 4% of people. To be part of community here is only actually 6%. What seems to be the core thing here is people come to worship in order to connect with God. And so perhaps we need to kind of think more about that in what we do. So Dave Adamson, Aussie Dave down in Australia, who's a kind of media specialist engaged in the online church and the hybrid church, has said these core things in the middle here, the yellow on this chart, which is what we kind of think as the core church activities, putting on services either on site or online. He says they should be the dating agency for God moments. Okay, that our our on-site or online worship is basically in order to attract people to God, to give them a taste of what God's like, to explain to them what God's like. He says the core development of our Christian faith is the green stuff to the right, in-person small groups, Zoom groups, city groups, the sharing, giving and serving of our mission. Yep. And so there's a big kind of difference between that kind of online dating thing that might happen for an hour a week, but then the complete, on the right-hand side, the kind of 24/7 discipleship that we've been trying to do all the time. And so perhaps we need to put less attention into the yellow stuff and much more attention in the hybrid church into what's happening with our discipleship. And in a way, that's exactly what's happened during lockdown. Yes, we did go online with services. Yes, we did go and present things, put lots of energy into that. But it was discipleship which grew, prayer meetings, Bible studies, attendance at morning prayer, all of that grew and grew and grew during lockdown. So, 24/7 prayer, Lectio Divina, or Lectio 365 and so on. All of these various apps grew remarkably during the lockdown. And perhaps that's where we need to focus a bit more, rather than necessarily doing too much work around the attending the church service. Though those need to be good and they need to be spiritually profound, because that's where we want people to connect with God in a really special way. I'm coming to the end of my talk, and just to kind of raise the hybrid church charter, which is something we're promoting at Premier Digital. And our argument is that we want people to provide ways to digitally access church in both real time and on demand, or on site and online. But it goes more than that. We want this to be available not just for church services, but also for events and conferences, for business meetings. We want it to provide people with a safe place to engage and discuss matters of faith and engage through effective safeguarding and so on. So you can read all those different things there. But is it possible to provide a hybrid church as a framework for accessibility, inclusion, and outreach, rather than simply saying everybody's got to come to physical church the way that we normally do it, on-site church? Is there a space for online being a safer place for people in today's society? Thanks for listening. I don't know how long that was, but I hope you kind of got some sense out of it. And yeah, that we can make sure the slides are available to people in chat in a moment or two. Alan, back to you.
Thanks, Pete. Well, there was loads in there. That was awesome. I've been jotting some questions, but I know that there were a couple of questions or like reflection in the chat as well, which we'll come to in a second. But I think the idea now is, because obviously there's a lot of information there and stuff like that. But what would be good is if we're going to just drop into some breakout rooms. So, I mean, you can keep your, screens off if you feel comfortable, but if you just want to turn your mics on. But yeah, it's just a way to process some of that stuff, or questions that you might have coming into it as well, just to be able to throw out there. And again, Pete's here to answer some of those questions about what he spoke about, but also, just to hear from one another as well, share a few stories. So what did we say? I think we've given it about, well, say 10 minutes or so to sort of get into those groups and conversations, come back with some questions, and then we'll have some Q&A. Is that all right with everyone? There's a few nods. Good. That's good. That's good. So that's an opportunity for you to chat as well, rather than just stuff. So right, we're going to break you out. I don't know who's doing that. I'm looking somewhere, but yeah, hopefully you'll get a little prompt, and we'll see you back in a bit. Great. Oh, yeah, there's a few more boxes appearing. It was like everyone used the opportunity to go home. That's all right. Welcome back, everyone. Hopefully it was some fruitful conversations. We've got some questions to ask. I know there was one in the chat already. What I also realised is I completely forgot to give Pete's title, because I feel like it's important, right? So Pete, tell me if I'm right. I'm just going to throw this out there. Just Pete Phillips, tutor and director of the Centre for Digital Theology, head of Digital Theology for Premier Media, and honorary fellow in Digital Theology at Durham University. Is that right?
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
Plus, yeah, kind of. I ripped off the bit at the bottom of his email, and I thought that must be what he does. I don't know, but yeah. Anyway, it sounds impressive, so I thought I'd throw that out there. So yeah, so if anyone's got any questions, if you throw up either a little digital hand or a physical hand if you prefer, or pop things in the chat. And maybe if we start with the one that was in the chat, from a lady who shares my surname, it appears. So Sarah said or asked, is one of the issues about building community through hybrid church around the tech that we're using? For example, was Zoom and Facebook quick and convenient? So we've not tried to move towards other tech like GatherTown, which encourages online community.
I think it's a really important question, isn't it, Alan? So I think I was on another thing with Ray Crisaldo from the Philippines the other day, and every time I kind of talk with Ray, who's enabler for the World Evangelism Forum or something, he always talks about Clubhouse and says actually Clubhouse is a great place to talk and discuss things and what have you, but no, the church isn't really using it. Is it about time that we actually went onto other platforms rather than just use Zoom and Teams or Facebook and so on, whatever it might be? There are so many possibilities out there. But then that reminds me that lots of people are already using Facebook groups and other models as well for doing different church WhatsApp groups and paper groups that they distribute and so on, or phone church. And hybrid church isn't just about these limited technologies. It's about using whatever technology we can find to do the God's message, to preach the gospel, to share in community together.
Yeah, definitely. There's another question in the chat there from Caroline Beckett. How have we managed to make church online an interactive, shared experience? And where do we go to resource ourselves for this?
Go on, Alan, you can answer this one.
Oh, what have I done? I didn't do it. I mean, in terms of resource, I'll leave that to Pete, but I guess I've been asking the same question. So obviously in my role doing pioneering in the States on Walthamstow, I'm always thinking about how we engage, people in a physical way, trying to get people out of their doors and to engage with us, which we've been doing in terms of mission for years, just trying to connect with people. And I suppose online, maybe there is more of I don't know, I wonder whether there's a bit of a fear there where actually it's because it's online, we're less inclined to think about how we're interactive. And I think right from the beginning of the lockdown, when we in the church where I was before this, we were doing online stuff, being interactive was on my mind constantly. Like things like, just I guess on Facebook, it would be like, rather than just speak to Facebook, rather than just stream a service, etc., but actually spend some time reading comments, bantering back and forth. I found actually people are a lot more open to banter online when they were sort of in the comments and stuff like that, and just making space for that, whereas in church you can't really banter. Well, I do, but it's probably not, it's frowned upon when you start bantering with a bishop in the middle of the cathedral. But still, it's it's a good opportunity for people to actually feel like they're part of it. So there are some simple ways to do it, just that I don't perform to people, but then I think that's a danger in actual church, that we make it into a performance that people come along to, and then after church we all have our tea and coffee, but the service itself is very one directional. But it's interesting that actually we don't mind that, but when it comes to so I feel like in terms of resources, I don't know, that would be on Pete's thing.
See, my natural mode of communication is try and bring people into the conversation. So this afternoon I was over at the Defence Academy talking to a load of chaplains, and kind of at the end of the day, before I shot back on the M4, somebody said, "You've opened a space for us to have conversation, and thank you for holding that space to talk about theology and talk about God." And I just thought, thinking about this on the way back along the drive and everything, and thinking, but that's not normal, that's not abnormal, that's what church should be about. It's opening up a space for other people to connect and to interact. And perhaps that's what we need to do with church. We need to be much, much more proactive about allowing other people space to talk, allowing other people space to share how they've encountered God. Where do we go to resource this? We need to go to God, we need to go to the Bible, we need to see Jesus practice and so on. But also loads of other places. This week's premier webinar on Wednesday afternoon is about where 4 different people from Singapore, Scotland, Wales and somewhere else connect, equip themselves for digital stuff, and where do they get their resources from. But Caroline, you seem to be much more resourced than I am. Could I throw the question back to you and ask you where you resource yourself, because you're so well resourced and equipped. I don't know whether we can put you on, we can highlight your video and have you on as well. Yeah, good. Caroline.
I think I've managed to unmute. So I would say we've done a lot with not very much, because we didn't know very much and we couldn't do very much. So we tried to do what we could do well, and what we decided we'd wrap ourselves around Zoom. So we did, and then we kind of added Jamboard to Zoom. So Jamboard is a thing where you can put up little virtual post-it notes to give responses to questions. So we can Zoom and we can Jamboard, and we've worked out that we can do the comments. We've worked out that if we all turn our microphones off and somebody plays a hymn, we can all belt it out without sounding like geese. So that works. And we have learnt collectively. So we learnt as we went, and it was never going to be polished and brilliant. But we created a service for Zoom. So rather than just doing a church service on Zoom, we actually designed the service around Zoom. So we looked at what the platform could do, and then we divided the service up. So our service, every little bit is numbered, and different people lead. So somebody will lead number 1, somebody will lead number 2, somebody will lead number 6. And whoever leads the bit is whoever's microphone, camera, and brain are working that morning. So there isn't the kind of premeditation or the polishing or the perfection element of it. It's more, we prep some stuff, obviously we do, but the majority of it is very ad hoc and shared. So with the exception of the sermon, and sometimes not even that, I don't do very much.
Right.
I just occasionally host the Zoom and it unfolds. But that's where we are now. That wasn't where we started. People gradually came to participate more and figured things out as we went along. But I think the key was we didn't try and be perfect or polished. We just tried to be genuine and to mess up and laugh. And we laughed a lot. We did laugh a lot.
It's really good. There's a Brick 19 report out on ritual innovation at the moment, and I don't agree with much of it, but one thing I do agree is that they say that the vast majority in their survey said it was much more important to be genuine than to be polished. Yep, they didn't mind if there were technical issues and what have you. What they really wanted was genuine engagement with God. Truth meant so much more.
And there's empty-handed mission as well, because interestingly, when we mess up, people on Facebook message in to advise us how we can fix the screw-ups. And so actually we've had some engagement from people who would never normally have engaged with a church service online because they want to be helpful. And there's something to be said about going into mission empty-handed and saying, will somebody help with this? Which is kind of like opposite mission in some regards. It's not the way we traditionally think of mission as we go out and we give something to people. But actually going out and saying, we really want to reach you, will you help us? Because we've got the willingness, but we don't know what we're doing. And actually I got a great tutorial on a gimbal camera by somebody who came and showed me how to work this gadget, so I can now work this gadget. And somebody else came and gave me 2 hours teaching me how to do stuff on Zoom because he did it for his job. So the community resourced us as we resourced the community. It was kind of a two-way thing.
Wow.
Awesome. I would just
make them exasperated enough and they'll help you.
I would just echo that as well. Like in the church where I was and the church where I am now, because I still do work at St Mary's, Walthamstow, and actually there's been like you say, through the service, people online will suddenly, get a text message or a WhatsApp or something like that saying, oh, the sound's gone out, or this is not working, or we can't see you, or whatever. And people are a lot more engaged and feel part of the service, which we never used to get before. And I think actually it does open it up to more people. And also, just as you were picking up there as well, something about, when you said, as the minister, you sort of guide things, but actually you're not always the driving force. Sometimes you take a bit of a back seat. And I feel like that's a real challenge, again, as, clergy of all kinds or leaders in the church, about our role, what online has challenged us about our role as leaders. Like, it's not that we're irrelevant. It's about how we lead in a different way as well. And I wonder if that's sometimes part of our challenge, because we worry that we're out of the job because, everyone can participate. So there you go. More questions? And there were, if you want to put your hand up, there were some reflections in the chat as well, I think. Don, spotted you.
It is this question for me, this question of resourcing, of thinking. I said this in our breakout group, that you get the idea that someone somewhere, it must be a Pete Phillips somewhere, who has got all the resources we need. We just got to unlock it and we can use it. From Caroline, we learned that you kind of find out as you go along, and that's what we're doing. But I wonder if there is something we can get hold of, somewhere we can go. We say, how can we do this better? Or are we barking up the wrong tree here? Should we be doing that? Is there a forum that we can plug into?
Certainly, I think that what happened during the lockdown was that there was quite a bit of money provided. So I'm part of the Methodist Church, I'm a Methodist minister, and the Methodists kind of went out of their way to reallocate district advance funds and connectional funds towards online ministry. So people were able to apply for small amounts of money to get tech and so on. I don't know what the arrangement is in the Church of England. Alan, are there sources available within Church of England?
In terms of online resources, well, we've got that's part of what my job is being 1 day a week. We've been developing an online church hub, which you can access. I don't know if James or someone will pop that in the chat, but there's a website, or not a website, there's a page on the Chelmsford Diocese main site, which leads you to the resource hub, which has got all sorts of links, and from equipment to good practice to webinars, from links to some of the Premier stuff. And then there's fairly new, as in literally I made it last week, was the Facebook page, where we're hoping to share more resources and again sort of gathered insight. So there's a few things that are in development as well, but I would say the resource hub and the Facebook page are probably our primary two right now. And of course, I was going to ask Pete at the end or in a little while to promote some of the stuff that Premier are doing as well. So, yeah.
Good,
is there any finance available from the Church of England? So that it's great they're resourcing you, but are they actually providing money for local churches to set up the hybrid church or to get the equipment?
I don't think so.
Yeah, no, I'm not sure if there's any direct funding. I mean, because right now all over there's stuff going on, but like as in financial issues. But yeah, sorry, Caroline, you got
there is money. There is I think it's something like £1 million available to faith groups who are doing things around rebuilding community post-COVID. Not that we're really post-COVID, but so if you're doing projects that hit their key aims, like, for example, tackling loneliness or poor mental health or what have you, then there is funding available. You can apply for that. And I was just trying, I went a bit cross-eyed on the image screen because I was just trying to find the link to the grant to post it in the chat. If I can't find it, maybe if I forward it to Tom, you can forward it out to people who might not have had it. But I think it's not necessarily around worship, it's more around community engagement. But the same resources that you buy using the grant money for community engagement, you can then also use for worship. So, and the same training would be applicable, obviously, both ways. So there is money. Also, just completely random, if you want to know how to make really easy videos when you don't know what you're doing, I'm putting a link in the chat to my, I did a little how-to on YouTube. And if an idiot like me can do it, then any one of you guys can.
Awesome.
And just to follow up on Alan's comments as well about the resource hub, that's going to be building and growing over the next sort of 3-4 months and stuff. Going to be extending it with some more how-to videos, etc. as well. So if you've done stuff as well, please send it in to us.
So often it's kind of belt and braces kind of resourcing model, Don, that's kind of being put into practice. People trying to kind of share as much as they can around. There's great, really good Facebook sites, Tech Church and Digital Church are two of them, and loads of people on there with lots of knowledge and everything. And sometimes offers of free equipment and everything. But I'm afraid it's not. There's nothing like the generosity that I've seen in the Methodist Church.
Okay, thank you.
No worries. And I think again, just to put out that because in so many ways this is new and we're still wrestling with so much. My hope and my drive would be that we, as the Kind Foundation, let's face it, this is all new, and we're the first sort of generation to be looking at this, and so my hope is that we'll be able to gather some resources, gather some funding as we move forward. So we'd also be really interested, people, you can find me an email or Tom or someone, and feedback, suggestions, ways that we can begin to, raise money and, make it a priority on, for the Church of England to be resourcing online stuff, I think. But yeah, we're at the early stages, so we're probably going to have to fight for it a little bit. Were there any more questions? Again, there's Colin. Make sure Colin. So I'm making sure I've got them all there. So we're trying to engage local people online who have no connection with the church. Do you have any suggestions on how to do this? I think that was it. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want me to go? Alan, you're the expert in kind of evangelism and outreach and everything to the unchurched. What do you say about that?
I would say I'm a gobby tattooed East Ender, so
we know that.
I just work on my strengths. But no, trying to engage local people online, no connection with the church. I mean, the only thing I can ever think of when it comes to anything like mission, whether it's, physical, online, or wherever it is that we've got to be present in the places where people are present. So, it's not much good really hanging about in our church buildings or anywhere, or even in our homes, hoping that people will engage with us in some way. So the only thing we can really do is be present, and that's going to look different for everyone. Again, it's like building, I make a joke about tattoos and cockneyness, but the thing is that's my strength. I'm a chatter, and I use that to chat to people around me, and that's what I do. But not everyone will have that, but other people have other skills. Other people have skills of hospitality or engaging. I chatted to Pete a little bit while you're in the breakout rooms about storytelling. I feel very passionate about storytelling. That's what we do online. People tell their stories online on a regular basis. A personal example was a couple of weeks ago. I don't know why I know why I turned 40, but I turned 40, but I did a little reflection. I just sat down, I did a little 5-minute reflection about going into a new decade and all the things that have happened, etc. And I just posted it out there, and loads of people come back to me, mostly my non-Christian friends, saying, oh, well, actually I've been going through this as well. And that was just because I decided in the spur of the moment to pop something out there. So I guess the only way I can really answer that question is just to be present where people are. We do it physically. Church down the road, they run a market stall on a Sunday, which is market day. They're present where people are, whereas the rest of us, we're in church doing our church service, but the people are down in the market. So it's like if people are online, then or wherever they're at, it's be present. That's the best I can come up with. But there are loads of people in the room, so if anyone's got any other ideas.
I've put a few about kind of making yourself available. So what's the online equivalent of going down to the local cafe and chatting, or meeting people at the market and places like that? So, are you on your Facebook community group? Are you online would people know you're a Christian? Is there, the whole thing, is there enough evidence to convict you of being a Christian on your Facebook feed? Or are you always kind of like me moaning about the government, which kind of doesn't make you kind of sound like a Christian, does it? So what is it about your online presence that will kind of make people think that you're a Christian? Caroline's asked, what does hospitality look like online? How do you welcome people? How do you engage with people in a hospitable way through it? Certainly, we don't need any more keyboard warriors within the church. We need that kind of open generosity and that lovingness. Alan, I think one of Alan's skills in evangelism is his openness and his willingness to engage with people without any other agenda, I think, except to show off his tattoos. And so that kind of makes him quite an attractive, kind of engaging kind of person. What is it about you that you could kind of see as a kind of attractive, engaging person to do evangelism online and to connect online?
I've seen Don there but also before I thought, Merrin, did you have a hand up? I'm not sure.
I did. I just wanted to ask a question. One of the things we've always done in the parish is prayer walking. And I just, it's a bit random, but actually posting that, you know, on your Facebook page. And if anybody had ever done it, and if there were any pitfalls.
So I'm just going to jump. There was a former young person of mine who did, in the midst of the pandemic, you know, when we were only able to do our walks, she did a walk from the village, Haven Bower, in sort of Collier Row, into Romford, which is only a few miles. But as she went, she stopped sort of every 5 minutes and did a little video vlog thing, and she like live streamed it as she was going, and it was and then she prayed, and she just said some prayers as she went, and I thought that was a really good example. It was so simple. She was just like, I'm going on my daily walk, I'm just going to record it, and I just thought, you know, it was a really simple thing to do. But yeah, so that was one thing I've seen through the pandemic.
That's helpful, thank you. I just, you know, this is all very new to quite a lot of us, and just having ideas and sharing ideas.
We could also do a kind of online prayer walk as well, and you can kind of use Google Maps to kind of walk along the street. But you might
We've
also...
got a ridiculously small parish, so, you know, why would I do it online when I can just get out there?
That's right. But you might also say that you're going to do it and tell the people of that street that you're going to be prayer walking. Are there things you would like them to pray for you while pray for that street while you're walking? Yeah. So kind of opening up the whole thing to a bit of digital scrutiny might be a good idea.
Yeah.
As long as you don't get people coming out and throwing things at you for praying, which you wouldn't want to do.
Just to add to that as well, there's a minister on Instagram called Reverend Chris, and he does little kind of 2-3 minute sermons as he's actually walking his child to school. So I don't think it also has to be a prayer, but actually his reach is getting the message out to thousands of people, and it's just he'll pray in the morning and stuff, and as he's walking his children to school, one's in the buggy, and he's just literally puts the phone up and just starts talking about what he feels God's telling him there and then. So that's just another way that you can sort of do as well, and just interact with your community as it's going around.
It's a very, very, very common thing for vicars to do now. Simon Layton's somebody else who does what Chris Lee's doing. Chris Lee's hugely influential on Instagram and so on. So thousands and thousands of followers. So Chris is huge, but Simon Layton's others, lots of other people. This kind of idea of offering a kind of community-based reflection to take spirituality onto the very streets where people are living, so that they might spot their things, think, oh, actually somebody's praying on my street. That's really interesting, because, do you know what I mean? That's not often what's done.
Don, I think, did you have your hand? I don't know where you've gone. I've lost your square on my screen. Oh, there you go. Did you have a question that you wanted to throw in again?
Don, you just need to unmute yourself.
I'm listening to what everybody's got to say, finding it very interesting, and hopefully we'll be able to put some of these things into practice. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the point of these sessions, really, to have the conversation, to get the conversation going, as we're doing, as it's clearly going now, but not to just leave it here, which is also partly why we put the Facebook group together, which, you know, obviously when Facebook is online again, we can, you know, join, because I think that's going to be another space where we can have these discussions, you know, and hopefully, so there'll be more of these, but I think it's actually on the day-to-day. Ken and Kath, I think I saw Kath here.
Yes, I put a question in without realising that I should have said it was my question, asking if we can have a copy of the presentation details from Peter, so that we can share them with people who aren't with us tonight.
Yeah, I've already put it on. I don't know whether everyone can see it, but I don't know whether only the comms team can see it.
No, it's in the chat. I've downloaded it. So after this, the whole session's been recorded. So we'll upload it over the next day or so onto our YouTube channel. You'll also get an email as well from the comms team, and we can include a link to the slides as well. So you'll be able to watch it and view the line and so on.
Thank you. That was what I hoped would happen.
Great. Now, I'm just aware of time, and because I love it when the conversations get rolling, but I'm also aware that Pete's wife asked him when he would finish so he could go and have dinner. My wife's on here probably looking at me thinking, get home so we can have dinner, and you're probably all thinking the same. So if we just draw it to an end with a bit of a prayer, if that's okay with people. I'm guessing no one on here is going to be, scared of prayer. Oh, he has to be up at 5:30. Oh, Pete. All right, well, let's keep going then for another hour.
There is another question.
Well, there you go. Well, I'll tell you what is another good thing as well. Pop some stuff on the if you do join the Facebook group, then that's great, because we can still fire some stuff over to Pete. Pete's the Premier as well. I wanted to really highlight this. The Premier Digital, they're doing loads of good stuff. They have a conference each year. Is that happening this year, Pete, or is that not?
No.
Not, because they're still coming out of stuff.
Yeah.
Cool. So, but there are things that happen. But is there anything coming up or ways people can connect in? Yeah,
sure. So we do have a Premier Digital resources thing. Premier Digital resource where you can kind of join as a free member, and you get an e-send every week, which has a video about online church or digital church or hybrid church, as well as the webinar, the digital hybrid church charter, and so on. So if I put up another link in here, premierdigital.join, that will give you, info.join. That will give you all the access to the videos that are already online from about, we've done about 37 webinars now about the hybrid church and about digital church. And it also, you can get free access to this e-send that comes out every week. You've got a list there of the Equip for Digital, which is the webinar that we've got this week on Premier at 3 o'clock. And you can either watch that live or see it later on through the recording. And they're good resources, but lots up there on blog posts and everything about hybrid church. And of course, the hybrid church charter, which I kind of talked about, premierdigital.info/charter is where the Premier Digital Charter is. So sign up for that as well.
Awesome. Yeah. So we can say there's loads of things. I know what Don was asking earlier on about finances and stuff, but at the very least, we're coming together as a community and we're putting some resources together and sharing some stories. So that's where it will start. And then, we'll build up to getting some dough behind it as well, So great. All right, let's say a quick prayer then, and then we'll end it there. Father God, I just thank you for this evening. Thank you for all that Pete's been sharing with us. Thank you for his wisdom, for all his research over the years. Thank you for all those that have been pioneering and leading the way in this online space for, a couple of decades now. We just thank you, Lord, for all the groundwork that's been poured out. I thank you for all the mission that's been done for people just wanting to reach out to their local communities in every way we can. Lord, we know you're our God of all spaces. You're our God who are with us all at this very moment in very physical ways, in online ways and spiritual ways. And we just want to engage with our communities, with our world, and just share your love with them. And I just pray, Lord, would you enable each one of us, give us the energy and the resources we need to just tell people that they're loved by you. And we just pray that we would see people come into that relationship, Lord. So, Lord, I just pray for a good night's rest, for some good conversations to come out of this, and we just praise you and thank you in Jesus' name. Amen. Cool. Great. Thanks, everyone. As I say, do keep an eye out. We're going to be doing some more webinars, but we're also going to try and practice what we preach, and we're going to try and do some live stuff in the new year where we're actually going to do some, come to the cathedral or somewhere like that, and we're going to open up some other topics. Another good thing as well is do join the Facebook group, throw out some stuff you want to talk about, so that when we do these sessions, it's actually, relevant as well, like tonight's was. So God bless everyone. We'll speak to you soon.